Welcome to This Week in Local, a Locology podcast featuring lively conversations about the local digital ecosystem, hosted by Locology analysts Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin.
Welcome to This Week in Local. I'm Charles Laughlin, Senior Analyst at Locology, joined by my colleague Mike Boland. Mike, we're sitting here at the end of L24, so I thought we'd just share a couple insights each on what we got from the event, so why don't you give us a couple?
Sure. Well, let's get this out of the way. AI, of course, big topic.
Sure,
it's big topic everywhere. It's big topic
You got
here.
there first, yeah.
What I was hoping to hear at this conference wasn't just insert AI here. It's just sort of like an add-on to everything he's talked about, but really practical discussion around how it's being integrated, how it applies specifically to the topic of this conference, which of course is SMB marketing, SMB SaaS. And I'm glad to say I did hear that. I'm not going to rattle off all the examples, but some of the, the more apt and low-hanging fruit for those applications is improving SMB marketing workflows and eliminating their pain points of the things they hate doing, which are the sort of rote aspects of marketing, everything from, SEO and coming up with page meta descriptions, coming up with ad copy for your about page, helping to devise your email marketing campaigns, and not just the what, like that's the what. The how, I think, was also interesting. So Joe Walsh said something that I thought was really a model for how people should be approaching this. And the saying that like the smartest people know what they don't know?
Right.
None of us know what's going to be the applicability of AI and how it's integrated. And I think he's practicing that. He mentioned that he basically told the whole company at Thrive,
Start using it.
just start using it. Everyone from HR to legal to accounting, just start using it. And then you tell me how you think this tool can make your job easier, faster, et cetera. And that just sort of bottom-up organic development is how this is going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look back to the iPhone, it took a few years for developers to sort of get that native footing of like what you can actually build for this thing.
Right.
Didn't happen overnight. And instead of just like shoving it down, top down, I think that bottom-up approach is appropriate. Yeah.
What I got less of this time was the AI doomerism.
Yeah, true. Well, I think everyone's like, it's like stages of acceptance. Everyone's now.
Well, yeah, there's
acceptance.
I don't want to use the stages of grief metaphor, but there is a corollary there, and I think it wasn't like there was zero of it, but and it wasn't like it was prevalent the last time, but there was a bit more. Yeah. A bit more of it, and I think this, for example, when Christian Ward said hallucinations, that's almost gone. I don't know if he's right. Yeah, certainly that's one of the people I would ask if that's still a problem.
You know what else he said is gone? Or actually finish your trail first.
No, that's fine.
He also said what he thinks is gone, which I thought was interesting, is this sort of concept of like, you need to ask the right questions to get the right answer back. Prompt engineering, essentially. Yeah. He said prompt engineering is going to go away because the tool is going to get better at this sort of like flow chart, like, what do you want? And then just sort of lead you into, okay, now I see what you want, here it is.
But there is something implicit in that statement that was kind of interesting. If prompt engineering goes away, does that imply a greater efficiency of AI, which kind of leads to some of these awkward conversations that we've been avoiding for a couple of days?
Yeah, perhaps, but also just makes it more effective and democratizes it. Yeah. That's the key.
Well, so the democratization point keeps being made, and I understand it, but I wonder if that papers over some other conversations.
Perhaps, some of the worrisome parts?
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to make, I think that conversation was kind of muted in this this conference.
Like
and I thought that was, when he said that, I thought, oh, that's interesting. So should not, because I forgot who said this. I think several people have said this. If you're going to recommend somebody to go take a course or, a young person to pick a career, learn prompt engineering. Now he's saying don't learn prompt engineering. So what's evolved? What's the evolution that's taking place implicit in that statement? And I thought there was something underneath that.
Well, the other implicit part is it's moving so fast that don't make any career choices just yet.
Well, I think that would have been better advice. It's like, okay, prompt engineering's not the thing. It's moving so fast, so just maybe go back to Joe's advice. Just start using it and see what happens. Live your regular life, but use AI in the process of doing that and see what evolves. Because I think picking a career choice around AI now, it seems to be unwise.
This is just a classic hype cycle.
Yeah.
But it's not like a hype cycle like I'm saying AI is all hype. I'm saying there's a cycle where there's a bit of overexcitement and everyone's so like it's going to apply to everything, and then it's just going to sort of level off into this like thing that's more mundane.
Yeah.
I think we're getting a little too excited about it on one side and too fearful about it on the other side. It's going to be more mundane. But while we're still talking about Christian and AI, another thing that like a question he answered that I think has just been a question that's like looming is where Google sits in all of this. And I think there's been a lot of like hand-wringing over like, is Google's era of dominance over because people are getting their information from like a different workflow or a different source. And I think that could be true to some degree, but the bottom line is that Google is going to be fine because it had so much deep research in AI.
You have always been a skeptic on the point that AI is going to disrupt.
Like Google's knowledge graph that it's been building for 20 years is the best AI training set you could ask for. So it's going to be fine. So its challenge isn't a technical challenge, but like more of a innovator's dilemma challenge. Like it doesn't want to disrupt itself.
Sure.
But the way it could pull that off is maybe query volume will go down and maybe there'll be less SERP inventory, not 10 blue links and 3 ad spots because you're just answering one question. The volume there is offset by the value in the high value offers. It can very targeted offers that it can have for users, and then in turn have some sort of bid marketplace to like get those offers. Yeah.
Shifting gears a little, one thing that struck me, kind of pointing to the social conversation we had earlier, is kind of the conversation around social media that exists out in the wild, is one thing, and what exists sort of in this room with practitioners is a completely different conversation.
Well, that concept applies like everything. It's called the Silicon Valley effect. We geek out about things that like, the litmus test I always ask myself is like, will my mom use this? Will she even understand it? Because that's a, I guess.
Well, that kind of breaks you out of that Silicon Valley.
Parallel to the litmus test of like, will SMBs use it?
Well, the example I'm thinking of is we were talking about what's going to happen with TikTok. Out there in the world, it's like, will they be banned? Won't they be banned? In which countries will it be banned? Here, no one seemed to care if it's banned or not. Because the behavior still exists. The need to reach people still exists. The mode of organic video being effective still exists. Just find, water finds its own level kind of a thing.
Right. So, and you brought up the TikTok lobbying. They're leaning hard on like, we help SMBs, right?
Well, they should be scared, but should the rest of the world care?
Right. But that's where I'm going with this. So it's a smart message. The opponents, the retort to that message is, you're like opponents in Congress, for example. You're important to SMBs, but you go away. It's not like, oh, all these SMBs are going to be stranded. Like they have a lot of social media options, not just social media options, but like TikTok clones. There's YouTube Shorts. There's Instagram Reels. So you're right. Like that vacuum will be filled if they go away. So
I
don't think they're going to go away, but if they do.
Well, I think we don't want to repeat our last podcast conversation where we both predicted it would not go away, and that was the conversation here was generally skeptical of that notion, and I think we still believe that, right? I do, certainly. And so what else struck you?
So back to Joe Walsh, there's a lot of things he said that I thought were interesting, and this is a good opportunity to move beyond AI.
Right. Which would be good.
Yeah, right. No, but the sort of like the planned disruption, like you're getting disrupted, and the realistic viewpoint that's happening. And when I say disrupting, it's just part of Thrive's business. The part of Thrive's business that is still print oriented.
Well, it's disruption without shooting your cash cow in the neck, basically. Right.
So phasing it out, just knowing that's the way the market's going, by sort of offsetting it with the growth of the SaaS business.
Right.
But the sort of sense of realism that was largely missing in that sort of slow deterioration of sort of print directories historically, like
gradually then suddenly.
I think he has a more realistic evidence market-backed sort of way of looking at how that's going to trail off and planning for it and optimizing for that like macro factor that no one can do anything about. And slowly, replacing it with the growth of the SaaS business. And someday his plan is for those to sort of flip in terms of their revenue shares.
Yeah. So one thing that was sort of interesting is it's always interesting when a piece of conventional wisdom is pierced.
Yeah.
And somebody challenges it effectively. And I thought David Shim did that pretty well.
Yeah.
I've been obsessed with this, OpenAI thread around, there's going to be a one-person unicorn. I'm obsessed with that idea.
Sure.
It's an intrusive thought for me. And so, of course, I put that to David, and he was like, kind of laughed me off the stage with that one.
Yeah.
Essentially saying that, no, it's not really going to happen. I still have to create something meaningful.
Yeah.
You may be able to get a little further faster, but ultimately it's going to be about raising money, building a team. Scaling it, that's still going to take people.
But I think he acknowledged that could be the case, but only to a certain stage.
He kind of said it takes you only so far. Yeah.
But you would not only that, you would be foolish to get to the point where maybe you have a $1 billion valuation. I guess that's the definition of a unicorn.
Yeah.
And then just decide at that point, I'm not going to throw fuel on that.
Right.
Fuel being...
Right. Well, and he also
people.
said no one's going to actually pay somebody $1 billion.
No, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So you're only a unicorn when it's like tree falls in the forest. Your valuation on paper versus an actual validated exit.
There have been plenty of people with $1 billion valuation for their company, and then it goes to zero.
Right. The
with
validated exit of that was $1 billion. That's when you're actually, So anyway.
Yeah.
No one's going to pay for that because what are you paying for? Like the thin layer of technology you built and one person.
Yeah.
And a lot of acquisitions are based on, sort of like an acqui-hire dynamic.
Yeah.
You're going to pay that much for one person?
So that valuation is kind of meaningless, essentially. I think that's the undercurrent of what he was saying.
Yeah.
But it's just nice to say, okay, something is out there in the world, and inside this room, it just gets blown away.
But you brought up a good point that it still will have an impact. The ability to get to that stage means that a lot of the sort of maybe seed funding could be
I think it disrupts early stage funding more so than it disrupts like the long-term scaling of a business.
Because you don't need as much capital to get to that point because you can pull it off with one person. You need less seed money. You don't need 10 engineers.
And my guess is, and I don't exactly, because when his original point was, when I first raised a much smaller amount of money, it went a lot less far. And I think again, this disruption I think is an early stage VC, but ultimately, when you get big, you still have to get big.
Yeah.
Okay. Any last thoughts? Anything else?
Yeah. So this last sort of series you guys did here today on BD-led acquisitions, very interesting, and it's sort of like it makes a lot of sense that like you date before marriage, you're going to tend to have but also just the time savings in the diligence and all of that makes a lot of sense. And it's surprising that doesn't happen more often. And you see a lot of live examples. So Josh Sherman gave a lot of examples of how this has happened.
Loom, I forget what the Loom, I think, And I think with the reason I wanted that conversation here, I thought that was so important is, and again, I don't have 100 examples at my fingertips, but I think if you just think about who's in the room, who's partnering here, it's the most likely outcome for any company that is attending a Locology event, looking for an exit outcome or looking to acquire someone. You start with who you're having drinks with at a conference like that.
Yeah. But I mean, there's just so many validated examples too. I mean, look at Salesforce. Until recently, it was it had like a decade of just being the most acquisitive company out there. Tableau, MuleSoft, even going back further, ExactTarget. A lot of those had some of those BD-led vibes to them. So.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. All right. Mike, I think we could end it there. I mean, there's probably a lot more we could unpack about this conference. It was a very full 2 days.
It was. Yeah.
It went by quickly, as they always do.
Yeah. So, and podcast listeners, stay tuned. We're going to be doing a lot to bring you more sort of sound bites and full sessions, and a lot of subsequent episodes will be based on the content we heard in the last.
I think my going away impression is that we have several episodes out of this conference.
Yes.
So we'll see how that unfolds. But
we will.
Stay tuned.
Yes.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Locology's This Week in Local with Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin. Be sure to subscribe for more.